The OG Powerpuff Girls is among one of my favorite cartoons of all time. There's my all-time favorite, Courage the Cowardly Dog, my second, Ed, Ed, and Eddie, third, SpongeBob, the early seasons at least, and then I'm pretty comfortable in saying my fourth favorite cartoon is the original Powerpuff Girls show. I've loved it ever since I was a little kid, despite being mocked for it, and because of my love for the show, I am here to say that I really do not want to see the show mangled and defaced any more than it already is. We had the last few seasons of the original show, we had the anime, we had the awful anniversary special, we had the 2016 reboot, and now we have this up-and-coming live-action show that had its script leaked recently, and it reads exactly how a 65-year-old thinks young adults talk. I mean, listen to this shit. Blossom's fine. I saw on her Insta that she has a boyfriend. I saw on her LinkedIn that she got promoted. And I saw on Facebook that she still talks to Grandpa despite their political differences. Coming back here is probably triggering for her. Why? Because she's the one who killed Mojo? I mean, MoveOn.org. Talk about genius writing, am I right? I wish that this was the most egregious part of the script, but it's definitely not. There's parts like where Buttercup threatens to leak Blossom's nudes. There's another part where Blossom walks in on Buttercup having sex with another woman. Bear in mind that this is based on a show where these characters are literal kindergartners. I don't care that they're supposed to be adults in this show. That's still pretty fucking weird if you ask me, but that aside, this is just yet another bastardization of a great cartoon. I really don't understand why this cartoon, out of all cartoons, continually gets dug up from its grave and repropped into something fucking awful. Is there really that much demand for this show to continually come back in some way, shape, or form? Because it's not like the original show ended on a high note. It was already well into seasonal rot territory. It deserved to be put out of its misery. I don't know what the original show's creator, Craig McCracken, thinks about all these awful reboots and reimaginings of his show. I don't know if he's ever made a statement about it, but if I were him, I'd fucking weep over how much my creation has been absolutely mangled throughout the years. It's to the point where, at least for me, whenever I watch my favorite episodes of the original show, I don't just think, wow, that was a great episode of a great show. I think the same thing, but too bad that great show has been defaced throughout the years and has had so many reboots and reimaginings that failed miserably and are absolutely terrible and tarnishes the legacy of the original show. It just pains me to think that there's going to be a whole generation of people who, whenever they think about Powerpuff Girls, they're not going to think of the original show. They're going to think of shit like the 2016 reboot that has stuff like the girls twerking, because that's totally what the world needs to see, right? Characters that are in fucking kindergarten shaking their asses. And I really don't want to sound like those people who are completely clouded by nostalgia and say stupid fucking things like, the kids these days, they're so unlucky, they didn't grow up with the shows we grew up with, because there's some great stuff airing today that these people choose to not acknowledge, but when it comes to shows that I love getting treatment that the Powerpuff Girls has received throughout the years, it's so painful, and it's so painful to think that there will be people who will think of these bastardizations whenever they think of the show. And it's really gross how a network can just resurrect any show they like, no matter how celebrated the show was, and make these half-assed reboots of them that only piss everyone off and tarnishes the legacy of the original show. And if anyone who worked on the original show has any objections, well, too fucking bad. It's not like they own the rights to the show anyway. The network does ultimately, and they can do whatever the fuck they want, and they already have a new team of people who probably had nothing to do with the original working on this new show, so the opinions of the people who worked on the original, who probably were part of why the original was so great in the first place, are completely irrelevant. Capitalism. Gotta love it. Anyways, don't get me wrong, it's not like I'm totally opposed to the idea of an old good show getting a reboot, because Courage the Cowardly Dog was actually supposed to get a reboot some years ago. It never happened. Cartoon Network decided against it, but there's a pilot for it that you can watch on YouTube, and I thought it was pretty good. All the people who worked on the original worked on this, and I thought it had some great potential, and I would have loved to see more of it, but then I think maybe the show is best left alone, because it ended on a pretty good note. Perfect was a great finale for the show, and Powerpuff Girls didn't exactly have the same triumphant ending, and that's more of a reason to not bring it back. So that's why I say, let the Powerpuff Girls rest already. Every attempt to bring this show back and introduce a new audience to it has failed so goddamn miserably because every attempt has been so fucking awful. Just air episodes of the original show. That's it. That's all you need to do. It's not like these episodes are so outdated to the point where kids these days would hate it, because they hold up well, despite being from the 90s. The reboot was already taken out back and shot, and this live-action show needs to be aborted. Please, for the love of fucking God, just let the show stay dead already. It does not not need to be brought back any more times than it already has. And trust me, this live action show is going to be met with awful reviews. No one is going to like it, and it's probably going to be canned after one season, or the second season if it's extremely lucky. And hopefully by then, network executives will finally understand that people just want the Powerpuff Girls to be left the fuck alone because they have suffered enough, and the time is nigh to put them out of their misery once and for all. That's all I have to say. Bye-bye.